It's kind of funny that I've already personally reviewed the Stanley Parable and given the history of the creation of Portal in another Noisy Pixel review, because the Talos Principle is the baby of those two games and takes them both to their celestial extremes, but I might be getting ahead of myself for this just being the introduction. You find yourself in a beautiful ruin surrounded by spatial puzzles, and there's a big voice in the sky telling you that solving them will lead you to eternal life. Oh, and there's this big tower somewhere that you should under no circumstances ever go near. I think we can see where this is going, right?
Unless it is necessary.
Noisy Pixel.
The Talos Principle was originally released in 2014, the game being a brain-bending logic puzzle simulator that might just tear down your entire worldview and then rebuild it over the course of its 15-ish hour runtime. It's not difficult to figure out that nothing here is to be taken at face value. The world around you is a simulated one where ancient structures are littered with computers and laser beams, the QR code messages you keep finding indicate that you're not the only one that's been here, and there's a different program telling you over text that the guy in the sky is full of it and you need to keep thinking for yourself. We're gonna set aside the religious allegories on clear display here though and address the gameplay first. Talos Principle divides its puzzles into separate rooms, branching off of 3 main hub worlds, and once you have access to each world, the puzzles can be tackled in almost any order. This is a major and welcome difference from other significantly more linear games in the genre, as solving later puzzles might give you the insight you need to go back and complete one you've previously been stumped by. The puzzles themselves start out just involving barrier walls, floating mines, and jammer devices that can temporarily disable either, but become more complex over time with laser connectors, movable cubes, fans, and device cloning time travel playback that turns you into your own co-op buddy. This sounds like it gets overwhelming, and sometimes it can, but I want to seriously highlight that the way these puzzles are presented makes them feel approachable. Most puzzles start simply and bloom over time as you move through them and gain access to more of their components, and very rarely will you be faced with an entire challenge at once. You'll frequently start by going around the expansive closed-in locations and determining which elements can be interacted with right away in order to free more of them up. It's an absolutely ingenious way of designing challenges like this. Reawakened adds a few quality of life changes that make a huge difference in the frustration of later challenges, the most notable of which is that the recorder device now lets you set pauses in your playback. The original experience would frequently force you to turn on the recorder and then stand in a specific location for a long time so that you'd be able to go through the motions of a puzzle before the recording ran out and your duplicated elements vanished. This does away entirely with that issue as you can hold on a paused playback indefinitely. Plot-wise, the game is very light on details at first, with a lot of information getting shared with the player over time regarding the world outside the simulation they're in, but I admit that I got surprisingly most invested in the unseen background characters. You get small bits and pieces of their stories and struggles to do exactly what you're doing, reading both logs on the computer scattered throughout the world and the aforementioned codes left behind by other dwellers of the simulation, and all of it culminates in an understated but extremely effective way. You can determine how you relate to one of these characters over the course of the whole game, and genuinely color the way the ending feels to reach depending on the relationship you have with them. It's very ambitious storytelling for a puzzle game. Graphically, although the entire game does have the level of detail saturation one would expect from a high-profile Unreal Engine 5 title, I do admit that the base game made me question why it needed to look this good.
Good. You are learning, as is your purpose. But your choices must be your own. Therefore, I will not guide you, unless it is necessary.
Funnily, the minimum specs from this title are the same as the recommended specs from the original on PC, so while it's not overly demanding just to get running, you will need a higher end machine to get the level of detail that Croteam is trying to present. This feeling stuck with me through the end of the base game, but going into In the Beginning, the new expansion that comes packaged with this remake, the engine switch finally paid off. The base game wraps up the story pretty distinctly, with the original DLC Road to Gehenna being a side story and the eventual sequel, the Talos Principle 2, taking place centuries later. But In the Beginning setting instead serves as a distant prequel to the main game. There's not a ton thematically to take away from the plot that you don't get from the base game, but it does give a lot more insight into how the simulation was originally designed and the people who made it, but be prepared going in. While the original game ramps up fairly gradually in difficulty, both of the DLC expansions throw you right into the deep end with a challenge level I would describe as "these puzzles want you dead." If what you were looking for was more of the Talos Principle, you will find it here, though I can't fully claim that the new content is worth the entire purchase price if you've already played the existing release, unless you're a diehard fan. The other big change is that the hub areas in the new expansion look jaw-droppingly gorgeous. While the zones in the base game tended to be either endless appearing sandboxes or closed-in areas surrounded by puzzle rooms, in the beginning really shows off just how idyllic and beautiful the simulation was intended to look, and even if my graphics card was less than happy with me, I was happy to walk around and take it all in. While we're on graphics though, I do want to provide a word of caution. This isn't something that's really affecting my score, as I did eventually find a way to resolve it for myself, and your mileage may vary greatly, but the original Talos Principle was known to cause motion sickness problems with its default settings, and Reawakened is no different, causing multiple days of nauseating trial and error during the review process. If you, like me, are in any way prone to motion sickness, as soon as you get into the game, go into the settings menu, increase the field of view to around 100, and turn camera bobbing and holdable bobbing off, making sure that camera blur stays at 0. Alternatively, you could play on a smaller screen, but I will mention that the game is not Steam Deck verified at launch. The Talos Principle Reawakened is a surprisingly topical game to come back to in 2025, and neither its plot nor its excellent puzzle-solving gameplay have aged a day. Not everything in the experience really benefits from the graphical rework that significantly increases the system expectations, but the new expansion takes full advantage of both the more advanced engine and the player's high understanding of game elements, even if I'd describe it as punishingly difficult. Croteam shot for the sky with the original and lands among the heavens with this remake. Noisy Pixel is giving the Talos Principle Reawakened a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.